The media pushback on Trey Lance continues, and not just from the media, from fans. We're going to dive into that and like, what is this? Like, what is it about? All right, we're going to talk about that. Tyrion Davis-Price, running back out of LSU. I finally really watched him, and I have some thoughts we talked about on Locked on 49ers. We're going to talk about that today and much more. You already know what it is, man. San Francisco 49ers Morning Show. Let's go.
Intercepted. It is picked off by Aaron Crocker. Over midfield, he'll run it all the way into the end zone. Touchdown.
Crock Talk TV podcast. Welcome to another episode of the San Francisco 49ers Morning Show. I am your host, former NFL and AFL defensive back, Eric Crocker. You know what it is. I see somebody say there's an echo. There's already an echo. All right, but yeah, Crocky just left the gym. I ain't go to the gym yet. I did just work out. Went on a nice little run. You know what I'm saying? It was a 3-mile run. I'm hot. I didn't even get a chance to really change my clothes yet. I changed my shirt real quick and yeah, changed my shirt, but I don't know. I still feel kind of sweaty. Anyways, y'all see we got a jam-packed show today. Some really good things to talk about. And of course, I want to bring y'all on a little bit later. So maybe I can hear a different perspective on some of these things. I did want to start off. And if you listen to Locked on 49ers with myself and Brian Peacock, y'all know we come at you 5 days a week. Make sure y'all tune into that. The link is in the description below. We touched on it a little bit last night. All right, with Danny Gray. And I've broken down Danny Gray, and we've watched the film, and I've talked about some of the things that I'm seeing. And I don't want to say things that are concerning, but here's what I try to do. And this will kind of tie into Trey Lance as well. What I typically try to do is just like, where is the guy at? Now, not one time ever. And people may try to spin it this way or whatever. But at no point have I ever said Danny Gray's not going to be good. At no point did I say he can't play. At no point did I say he can't do this, can't do that, whatever. I talk about what I see on the film. I talk about areas where I feel like, hey, he needs to improve, but he definitely has the ability to do so. All right. So with Danny Gray, some of the things I'm seeing, and I talked about it, like I think he can play faster in the sense of really using the threat of his speed to get cornerbacks upfield or to just threaten cornerbacks. And right now, like when I watched a lot of them, like, you know, the corners, they weren't really scared of the speed. I'm like, okay, you got to use that as a threat. He's not doing that right now. Doesn't mean he can't do it, right? But there's one player that came up last night while talking on the Locked on 49ers pod, and we had a great guest on there as well. But Terry McLaurin, I remember when Terry McLaurin was coming out, and my thoughts on Terry McLaurin, who went third round, like Danny Gray, I was just like, a lot of people talk about him. I didn't quite see it, right? Like I'm watching Terry McLaurin. I watched his film. I watched all 22, and there wasn't much there. I didn't see the, twitch off the line and things like that. I didn't see him, being a route runner. It was a lot of they didn't have really like much of a route tree. It was a crosser and like a deeper crosser, and that was it. Like that was their whole offense with Terry McLaurin. And based off of that, and clearly the NFL was on the same page as me with what they saw, it was just like, I don't get quite the hype surrounding Terry McLaurin. Obviously, he's a guy that ran in the 4.3, so you see that type of, speed, and you can see him kind of run away from guys on crossers, but there was a lot to be desired from him. Now, the guy that went to the Senior Bowl and things like that, but I didn't quite see it with Terry McLaurin from that standpoint. And again, with where he was as a prospect. And Danny Gray, I see the same player. Now, that's not to say that Danny Gray will turn into what Terry McLaurin is right now, which is, I think some people would say he's one of the better route runners in the NFL right now. He's one of the better young receivers for sure. He's up for a contract just like Deebo Samuel and those guys. And he's been like terrific for Washington. I think if you actually ask people before this season, they would say, Terry McLaurin, like I take him over Deebo Samuel. I bet before this past season, there were a lot of people that would say that. All right, so he played at that type of level. Obviously, the quarterback situation is kind of sucked and coordinators and all that stuff, whatever. But I say all that to say, with Danny Gray, and I've given my evaluation on him in areas where I feel like he can improve, but that doesn't mean that whatever he is as a prospect, he can't improve on those things. And I want to make that clear. With a lot of these prospects, it's not about being right in the sense of, and I see this a lot, this guy will be this or he won't be that or this and that. And if that's not what happens, it's just, you know what I'm saying? Like everybody in this industry, everyone, they want to be so right. They want to push their agendas. And if my agenda and it's like, I'm not like that. I want to make sure clear, because sometimes I get people that come at me and they're like, dude, I hope the dude succeeds. I think the dude can be good. Hey, this is just where he's at right now, and he has to improve on these certain things. And if he does that, awesome. And I've seen it. I've seen the development of players, and that's why I am big on player development. I am big on whatever a guy is right now, he can improve on those things. All right, and I see my guy in the chat right here, Curly Daddy. He said, "Wow, I watched Scary Terry's entire career being a Buckeye fan. He's a monster. He is a monster in the NFL, and I think he did some good things in college, but we're talking about a guy who, was a senior. We're talking about a guy who lasted until the third round. And again, that's not to say that he won't be good. That's where they saw him as a prospect. And he went behind guys like Andy Isabella and stuff like that. So if they would have known what they know now, obviously he would have went higher. But the film, at least from what I saw, it fit more where he went as opposed to somebody that should have went first round or second round. All right. But I say all that to say, everybody wants to be right. Everybody wants to push these agendas. And I see it consistently on social media. And I think that ties in with the topic here, and it's, team and media pushback on Trey Lance. And we don't know how much of the actual team, the people in the house right now, are pushing back on Trey Lance. We don't know. I want to make this very clear. Whether Trey Lance succeeds or fails in the NFL, it got nothing to do with me. Like whether I liked him coming out or I didn't like him or whatever, none of that shit matters. All that matters is, hey, does he end up being good or does he not? And if he doesn't, then okay, then use a lot of draft capital on him. You got to pivot. Life is all about pivoting. I've talked about my situation here in Arkansas where I was told that I was going to come out here moving from California to be a student assistant so I could finish getting my degree. I was going to coach on the university team. The school that I went to, Division II school, where I went and I was a team captain and I went off and I played pro ball. And it's like, oh yeah, you come back, finish your degree, yada, yada, yada. And that's not what happened. You know what I'm saying? I had to pivot. So if the shit goes south with Trey Lance, then you just pivot. But you don't get any oh man, you were right about this. Oh, you said, you know what I'm saying? Who cares? Who cares? And I see a lot of people championing any time, whether it's for good or for bad, right? On prospects, and it's like, dude, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Put out there what you see as a content creator, as a film evaluator, whatever it is. What do you see? And okay, where does the guy need to improve? And can he improve on those things? That should be it. Not, oh, he's going to fail. He's going to this. And I see a lot of that. So let's start with Trey Lance. The pushback on Trey Lance. I don't know why it's as loud as it is, but it's pretty much been like that for his entire time with the San Francisco 49ers, where it's always Trey Lance. Oh, no, you got to push back. Oh, he can't do this. He can't do that. He can't make quick reads, throwing motion. They nitpick everything to fit a narrative on this prospect, right? I remember them doing that, a lot of that with DK Metcalf. Do y'all remember what the conversation was about DK Metcalf coming out? I had him as my wide receiver 1. That just means I really liked him. He could have sucked. Hell, at my wide receiver 4 and 5, I had Hakeem Butler and Riley Ridley. We ain't heard from them motherfuckers since, right? But as far as DK Metcalf, it was oh, he can't turn left, can't turn right. And it's like, man, y'all focus so much on what he can't do as opposed to, man, what things can he do to be able to play at a high level? All right. What things does DK Metcalf do? You know, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, he's quick. He's explosive off the line. You know, he really can outrun guys like the vertical threat that pushes guys upfield. He can sit his routes down, even though he might take a couple steps more at the top of his route. He can run crossers and run away from guys. He can run digs. He can run posts, big ball, all these things. And y'all want to talk about because he can't turn left, turn right, and do a double move? What? So everybody, they focus so much on the he can't do this, he can't do that, and they do it with Trey Lance. Oh, I don't know, I hear all kind of wild stuff. And the crazy thing about Trey Lance, with all of it, and again, I am someone who liked Trey Lance coming out. I really like Trey Lance. Whether he succeeds or fails or whatever, whatever, you pivot. All right. But I saw a lot of good qualities. I saw a guy that was able to make all the throws. Hell, I've seen that at the NFL level. Now, if you want to focus on the negatives, and that's why he's going to fail because of, oh man, he threw this. Look at this slant. He threw it over the guy's head. Oh, look at his first pass. Roll out. He threw it at George Kittle's feet. And it was ugly. Okay. His first pass in the actual, really like I'm in. And Kyle doesn't know how to call plays for me, whatever. And throws a ball on a boot at Kittle's feet. It was ugly. He threw some slants. Ugly. And that's what there are people that want to focus on the negatives with prospects, not just Trey Lance, with prospects in general, so they can be right. Like, they're not going to talk about the rest of that game where he did start making some throws, where he did make plays with his legs, where there was 4th and 2 and he rolled left, pump fake, and then threw a first down ball to Deebo Samuel on the move. And then the ball moving and he throws it to Sanu and 4th and 10 and he runs for a first down. They're not going to talk about those things in the ability and the upside of Trey Lance or just in prospects in general because they want to be right. Because they want to be right. So bad. And I see a lot of that. And to me, it's kind of wild because they'll look at that with him. And again, I talk about guys like Mac Jones because Mac Jones is like the people that push back so much on Trey Lance or even other, some of the other guys is should have had this guy. Should have had Mac Jones. And I bring up certain things, not because I don't think Mac Jones is going to be good. I like Mac Jones. Crazy thing is you couldn't like Mac Jones and Trey Lance at the same time or any of these other guys. I like Mac Jones. I did push back on the thought of him being the number 3 overall pick because I didn't think he was that caliber of a prospect. Doesn't mean I don't think he's good. Went to a good, solid situation for him. But they don't talk about Mac Jones. I'm the only one I feel like that brings it up. And the only reason why I bring it up is because none of these rookies are perfect. None of them are perfect. None of them. So I talk about Mac Jones. They talk about him like he has no flaws. He started out 2-4. They went on a nice streak where he didn't have to do much. He did make some throws. And I like what I saw. I like Mac Jones. The way he finished the season was not great. For prospects, and you want to see them continue to keep getting better and better and better, right? The prospects, you want to see them, and he didn't really get better, right? Or at the end of the year, and I know, he made Pro Bowl somehow, I don't know. But the New England Patriots lost 4 out of their last 5 games. I talked about this stat before. The New England Patriots lost 4 out of their last 5 games. 4 out of their last 5 games. And the one win was against Jacksonville. And in the 4 losses, he threw 7 interceptions. But they've already made up their mind in their head on what he is, so he can't do any wrong. I'm not here to bash Mac Jones. I like Mac Jones. I think he's going to have a successful career in New England. But what I'm saying is, why do they nitpick at every negative or a flaw or a moment with these other guys and not other players? Why do certain players get so much of the benefit of doubt? And it's like this media narrative thing. It's this fandom narrative thing. And everybody, they push and they push and they push and they want to be right. And to me, it's crazy. Instead of just saying, you know what? These players are really young. Hey, I think he can do this better. I've seen him do it. There's not one thing about Trey Lance that people can say, I have not seen him do it. So the question should be, okay, How do we get him to be more consistent doing it? That should be the question. That's my question. When I saw Trey Lance against Arizona, I'm like, okay, I see he needs some work, whatever. I just want to see how does he look come next time he plays, which was later in the season. And it was like, you know what? He looked better. Was it great? Most people would say no, he struggled first half. You hear a lot of that. But with what he did is like, oh no, like we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about the fact that he completed 70% of his passes and threw for 250 yards and ran for another 30 and had 3 touchdowns, but one was called back. And okay, he had the interception and maybe he missed his throw, but like let's not talk about any of the things that we like. Let's not talk about any of the things that we look for in a quarterback and why they drafted him. Let's not talk about the plays he was able to make on the move. Let's not talk about him rolling left and like, I'm going to bypass that little check down. I'm going to pump, make a guy miss. I'm falling back. I throw a strike on the sideline. We're the only place where the ball can go. Let's not talk about that. Right? Let's not talk about that. Let's not talk about, his on the goal line. Okay, I see double stands. I ain't like it. Let me move around. Get outside. Boom, throw a strike for a first down. Let's not talk about the things that he does well. Let's just push narratives on, he can't play or whatever it is. And they point to all the negatives with Lance as opposed to, hey, here's where he's at. How can he become more consistent? And it's just really weird that out of all, the young guys, he's the main one that these narratives get pushed on. And, I think it's the NFL, so I don't want to say it's not fair, but I would say, it's tough because I'll tell you what I see with Trey Lance. What I see from Trey Lance is he has the ability to be everything that they drafted him to be. Everything that they thought they were getting with Trey Lance, he has shown the ability to do it and be that guy. But for whatever reason, there's so much pushback. There's so much scrutiny. I don't know why. And it's crazy. I say all that to say there are a lot of people, they want to be right and they push. And I see it. And I see y'all give these people attention. Stop giving them attention. Listen, I said, you know what? I was telling my dog, Chris, I'm like, I'm not going to give my thoughts on, I'm not going to give my thoughts on Twitter, but I don't talk as much about 49ers on Twitter anymore. Every blue moon, I might see a tweet or respond to something. But if you actually look at my timeline, not a whole lot of 49ers stuff. A lot of my, especially with tweets, I don't ask questions to get clicks or attention on 49ers stuff. I tweeted out, last thing I feel like I tweeted was like, man, I can't wait to watch Trey Lance lead the 49ers to playoffs. And then you know what I got back? You know what the response was to that? And I don't tweet a whole lot about 49ers. Sometimes I'll respond to stuff. And I even stopped doing that because I realized these people don't care. You know who cares to hear my opinion on it? And I care to hear theirs? The people in this room right now. The people in this room right now. That's who I care about. All right. But I was like, you know what? Everybody on Twitter, they just want to respond. They don't hear you. And I posted that, right? I posted, hey, the can't wait to watch Trey Lance lead the 49ers to the playoffs. And the response I got was, that won't be good enough. If all he does is lead the 49ers to the playoffs, that's a fail. What? Like, that's how this whole thing is viewed, man. I'm just like, whew, this is wild. This is wild. And it's just crazy. The narratives that are pushed, how people hang on to that, and it's just the need to be right. And it just gotta be right. It gotta be right. Gotta be right. And I'm just like, tough for a young guy. Tough for a young guy who has been written off before he can even get going. And all these narratives get created around him. And they don't look at the fact that maybe there's this guy named Jimmy Garoppolo in front of him that won a lot of games with the 49ers. Got my guy Gammon in the chat. Slants and bubble screens are the meat and potatoes of this offense. Juwan Jennings made an athletic grab at a ball thrown at his feet, basically at the line of scrimmage. I'm trying to think. Jawan Jennings made it. Are you saying with Trey Lance playing or Jimmy? And it's crazy because I saw somebody tweet out. I see all this stuff on social media. It's so funny. I saw someone talk about Trey. They were talking about the quarterback, the Brock Purdy, and he threw his ball wildly out of bounds. Right? Rich Madrid posted it, and he's like, "Hey, they drafted this guy, and he threw his ball out of bounds." And then I saw someone respond and say, "You know, but you don't scrutinize a guy rolling out with George Kittle right by him. He throws it at his feet, right?" And then I saw Rich Madrid respond with Jimmy Garoppolo throwing the ball at George Kittle's feet. And it was just like, I don't know. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? But yeah, Jawan Jennings made an athletic grab, throwing at his feet. It's funny how Zach Wilson looked like a bum in media capital of the world, and he's being left alone. And you know what? Not only is he being left alone. Ooh, this is a good one. Not only is he being left alone, he's widely considered the best second year quarterback. Or I mean, like that's who they're saying is going to have the best year out of everyone. Why? I don't know. And not like Zach Wilson. Again, I'm rooting for all these young guys. I root for all these young guys. But you know, he's widely considered heading into this season, second year. And maybe it's because of some of the things they did around him. Maybe that's what it is. I mean, but I'm looking at 2021 stats. His QBR was 28, threw 9 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. I mean, he completed 55% of his regular season passes. I heard his quarterback rating was 69. They were talking about Zach Wilson here. I heard someone say that with Trey Lance, and I thought this was comical. It was like, well, yeah, you know, if you take away Trey Lance's game against the Texans, then his completion percentage is X, Y. And it's like, you can't take it away. He played against the Texans. He played well in his second career start. What are we doing? What are we doing? But that's the extent that they go to prop up some of these other players. And it's like, well, let's take away this game where he made his second start, Trey Lance, and he played a full game. I just think it's so wild. Because he's a child of God. That's why they hate on him. Man, I saw someone hate on his tattoo. He has his tattoo and it said child of God. And I'm like, I hate the font. I'm like, damn, Trey Lance just can't do anything right. Like, wow. Wow. That Lombardo tweet was total BS, concerned about his arm strength and deep ball accuracy. He obviously never watched Trey Lance. Listen, I've gotten to the point where I don't give those things any mind, because at the end of the day, if Trey Lance comes out and he's firing, and if he's firing on all cylinders, then they're going to change their stance, right? Like that's what they're going to do. So that's why you never see me go too far deep in this way or that way, because the human element of things. And we all, you know, like y'all can look at yourselves and look at, you know, you've had ups and downs and things like that. And it's just like, you know, we all have things that we can improve on or we get better at. Like, I'm surely not the same person I was, you know, even a year ago now, right? And if somebody would have been like, man, Crock's a bum. And maybe a couple years ago, I mean, not saying I was a bum, like, I mean, a hardworking man, but, you know, maybe I wasn't where I wanted to be. Then now they would have to just, you know, change their tune. Crock's doing it. I always believed. Shut the fuck up. No, you didn't. You were just hating. Right? And that's Trey Lance. Watch when Trey Lance, you know who I respect? You know who I respect? Chris Sims. And this is why. Chris Sims had this opinion of Trey Lance. And he was like, oh man, like Trey Lance, you know, throwing and this, that, and the other. And he had Trey Lance at like his 6th quarterback in the class or something like that, right? He didn't care for Trey Lance. And then he watched him against the Texans and he's like, there's something there. right? He's like, there's something there. Like, hey, if I'm 49ers, I play him over Jimmy Garoppolo. Like that's where he was. And that's how it should be. Not saying, and I was like, I would play Jimmy Garoppolo against the Rams and then next week. But just in the sense of, hey, not always right. I saw this, I evaluated this. This is where I saw where he was at, and maybe things that are easier or harder to improve on. And I see him later, and I'm like, hell, he makes the team, he makes the offense less scary and more explosive. And when I say less scary, I mean because of how you have to throw and play with Jimmy Garoppolo over the middle, right? Where it's kind of scary, right? Jimmy just throwing those passes over the middle is like, man, you have very little room for error. I know a lot of y'all watched my I had a pro day where I was throwing passes. Did y'all see my pro day? If not, I'll find it and maybe I'll post it. But I had my little pro day, right? And I threw this drive pass over the middle. And I led the receiver a little bit. He had to jump, like he made like this one-handed catch. People were like, oh man, he would have got laid out. And I was like, man, shut up. I ain't no real quarterback. But it felt good to do it because I understood, like, man, those passes over the middle, like that's hard. You have so little room for error. And the guy is moving across like full speed. Like you got to put the ball on the money. You got to be pinpoint with your accuracy with it. And so where Jimmy throws, it's tough because if you are off a little bit, you can lead a guy. Maybe it tips, and we already know tips and overthrows. That's interceptions, right? And if you look at a lot of Jimmy's picks, probably a lot of that. He lives in a dangerous area of the field. Now he does it very well, but he lives there. And Chris Sims was like, "Oh man, it's just more dangerous with Jimmy Garoppolo as opposed to Trey Lance, where you're throwing outside the numbers, you're throwing some passes down the field. Trey Lance threw several passes down the field, got a long pass in the field. When was the last time the 49ers threw the ball down the field? I mean, I'm talking about 40 yards in it and got like a pass interference call. It was good to see that versus Houston, right? So yeah, Lombardo dude talking about deep ball accuracy, and I don't know. But the moment he plays well, they're gonna change their tune. I'm not saying he will. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. I don't know. I think he's that type of person. Like he'll get it together. But I do believe that he's shown whatever you drafted Trey Lance to be, he has shown the ability to do that. Again, I'll see comments. Can't process, can't make quick throws, blah, blah. And it's like, well, what about this throw? What about that throw? Well, no, then they'll make an excuse for why he did it right then and there. They'll make an excuse on why he did this and that. I mean, we saw him doing some of that in the preseason. Again, it's just how can you get him to be more consistent with it? That's all. Look at the comments Robert Saleh is making publicly and intentionally to the media compared to Kyle Shanahan about Trey Lance. Saleh better with the media. Yeah, that's a good point. And we also saw Pace. Is that whoever the GM? The Bears got a new GM. Can't think of his name right now. But he did that too, right? Where they came out, someone tagged me in it. Terradome, I believe it was, that tagged me in it on Twitter. And Terradome was like, you can see the tweet and what the GM from the Bears said about Justin Fields. And he was like, oh, like we are all in on Justin Fields. We back him 100%. He's our guy. We're going to do whatever to build around him. And we haven't heard that from the 49ers, right, as it pertains to Trey Lance. And it's tough because as long as Jimmy Garoppolo's on the roster, I don't know if you can say that. Just because you never know. I don't think you can push or kick Jimmy Garoppolo out the door. Now, they tried to push him out the door, right? They tried to trade him. And they tried. And it's like the shoulder threw everything off. So now they're just trying to figure out, okay, like, what the hell do we do? They tried. They were this close. They were this close to being able to say, we're all in on Trey Lance. But as long as Jimmy's on the roster, they just can't say it. And it would be kind of, I'm not going to lie, it would be kind of weird to come out and say that when there is a guy on your roster that has won a lot of games. But I know Justin Fields is going to have a leeway to, whatever ups and downs, they're going to play through that because that's their guy. As far as Robert Saleh and Shanahan, and again, I do feel like right now as it stands right now, May 10th, I need to pay my cell phone bill. May 10th, Kyle Shanahan can't come out and say that with Jimmy on the roster. He just can't. But I don't even know if he ever will because Kyle Shanahan, he has more of a throwback mentality He's a very throwback coach. He's very old school. So I don't even think that's in him to just be like, that's our guy. We're building around him. Like, he's never done that. He didn't even do that with Jimmy. Now, he has said Jimmy's the starting quarterback, but even then he was like, well, Jimmy's the starting quarterback until he's not. Like, that's his thing. Jimmy's the starting quarterback, and like, unless Trey Lance gives us the better chance to win, then Trey Lance to be the starting quarterback. Like, that's always been his thing. That's just how he comes off. He's just a different cat. He's very throwback, old school. He's like Belichickian. He's like Parcellian, right? I feel like he's molded by those guys. That's how I feel like he's kind of molded. So I don't know if you'll ever see him do that. Crock woke up and chose violence today. I love it. I wasn't on yesterday. There were some people like, did I miss yesterday? No, you didn't miss yesterday. I wasn't on. Because I don't want to like make up stories. And even this topic of Trey Lance and all this, like, I don't want to talk about it like that. Like, everybody talks about it. But I told Chris, like, if I'm bringing it, I got to bring a different perspective. So here's my perspective. Trey Lance, nobody knows what he's going to be. And there are a lot of people that are rooting for his downfall. I think that's hella fucking weird. There are a lot of people that I just don't see. Because you don't want to see it. That's all it is. You don't want to see it. The vision in which I'm seeing it right now is I see a guy with a lot of upside, and I think he's done everything and shown the ability to be everything that you drafted him to be. He just has to be more consistent at it. Can he do that? And if he does, then he's going to be good. If he can't, then he won't be good. It's really that simple. But nobody knows. Nobody knows. And it's really wild, like, the things that they say about him. I think Trey Lance is going to be just fine. I think he's going to be just fine. All right. I'm definitely going to bring y'all on real quick. I want to talk a little bit more about Tyrion Davis-Price, because this is a guy who I am pushback on him. All right. Let me make that clear. I thought with Davis-Price, it was the pick, the value of it, where I'm like, I thought the value of it was bad. Third round. Well, you drafted him to be the guy? But I always told y'all, I haven't watched him yet. I haven't watched him. I made sure I told y'all that. Just the value of a running back pick. I didn't care for that. And if you look at where, like, a lot of running backs are going, especially like if you're not drafting him to be the guy, which I don't know, we'll see. They go 5th, 6th round and stuff. 4th, 5th, 6th round. If you're not drafting him to be the guy. And when they made that pick, I'm like, well, you got Elijah Mitchell. Isn't that your guy? Maybe it's not. But I went and watched Davis-Price. Of course I watched him. Talked about him on Locked On 49ers. Come at you 5 days a week. Make sure y'all tune in. Link is in the description below. And here, I'm just going to read through some of my notes. And I'll kind of talk through some of the things I saw. All right. Big back, listed at 211 pounds at the combine. But his coach said he plays north of 220 pounds, somewhere between 220 and 230 pounds. And when I say his coach, I'm talking about his running back coach at LSU, which was Kevin Falk. All right. Here's some of the notes I put. Very fluid runner, especially for someone who is big as him. I think he had nice suddenness and nice twitch. I think he definitely has the ability to make guys miss. Now, is he LaShawn Shady McCoy? No. But is he someone that in tight areas, like, I can make this first guy miss? Definitely. And I think once he picks up speed, people definitely don't want to be the first person to make contact with him. He will take what you give him. So if it's a play that's blocked up for 5 yards, he will get that 5 yards, right? There are some players. I'll say Elijah Mitchell. I think there were a lot of runs last season, in the vision, right? Where, hey, Elijah Mitchell, like, you see this outside zone and how it's blocked up, like, put your foot in the ground here, get upfield, and man, you pick up more yards than whatever it is that you got, right? Like, man, you ran into somebody's back as opposed to hitting that cutback lane. I think with Elijah Mitchell, he definitely puts his foot in the ground and gets up, and when it's there, it's there. But there are times as well where he'll run into people's back. With Ty Davis-Price, if it's blocked up for 5 yards, he has the vision to pick up those 5 yards. If it's blocked up for 2 yards, he has the ability to pick up 4 yards. That was something I really liked. That was very reminiscent of Frank Gore. Now, again, I'm not saying Frank Gore. I actually have a different player. He reminded me of Montgomery from the Bears. He reminded me more of that, a little bit more like speed and actually like run through somebody's face. But in the sense of just like his ability to like, oh man, he picked up 5 yards there when it was only blocked up for 3. Those are things I was very impressed with. All right. And I continue to say, gives you both. Okay, so he had a little bit of both running backs with the 49ers. He had a little bit of Mitchell and he had a little bit of Sermon. And I'm like, man, he's like Sermon and Mitchell combined, right? Now, I think just straight line speed, Mitchell is faster. But he's definitely fast enough because all you got to do is, can you be fast in those first 15 yards, right? And I think he's definitely fast in there. And what I meant by he remind me of both, right? Because Sermon has nice elusiveness, but I don't think he just hits the hole right now. So it's like elusiveness, okay, where Tyrion Davis-Price, I was like, man, he's very patient. He knows how to set up his blockers. You know, he is more of an inside zone type runner, but man, when he sees it, he's patient and then once he puts his foot in the ground, because he has the patience of Sermon, but once he puts his foot in the ground, oh, he's getting north right now. And look out, right? Look out. So he reminded me of that with Sermon, like the vision and the patience. But then the one cut part reminded me a lot of Elijah Mitchell, where it's like when he decides I'm going north right now, he puts his foot in the ground and he's getting north. And when he gets north, I liked it. Pass protection was really good. I thought he had a great feel for setting up his blockers. His jump cuts were really good. I mean, there was a play where it was like he was hiding behind his lineman almost. And it was like you show gets outside. As soon as he gets outside, boom, puts that foot in the ground, gets up north and picks up 4 yards. And it doesn't seem like much, but it was just very, very consistent. A lot of just, in my opinion, good running. Now, we'll see how explosive of a runner he is, but he's definitely tough. And he's definitely someone where I'm like, man, if you're not drafting this running back to be the guy, why are you drafting in the 3rd round? You got Elijah Mitchell. I think there is potential for him, depending on, see how things shake out, to push Elijah Mitchell for reps. We'll see. That's one of the more underrated camp battles I'm ready to see. Elijah Mitchell has been in the league for a whole year. He understands more of what Kyle Shanahan wants, so he should be better. But we're going to see. This is a tough, big back. Wasn't very productive first couple of years. I listened to Kevin Falk, said he had a child, lit a fire under him, and he was very productive last year. Then he came out. So we're going to see. I just kind of wanted to talk about that. Now, in the sense of the value of the running back, I still think that's high. Just because in the end, who am I? But I think 3rd round, I'm looking for guys that I want to come in and be a starter. Right? Like when you see the guy drafted 3rd round, it's like, all right, like when he's going to make that jump, we want to get him on the field. And, when you draft a running back like that, it's like, but I definitely can see an area where he contributes. I just think there's a lot of running backs that can contribute even later. There were a lot of running backs that a lot of 49ers fans like that were drafted well after him. Pierre Strong, the kid from North Carolina, like Ford from Cincinnati, 5th round. I mean, there were guys going off, and I'm like, damn, he would have been good with the Niners. He would have been good with the Niners. And they like Davis-Price. I just think the value of it at the running back position, I would have probably went with I would have went with Nick Cross. But again, maybe they like 49ers safeties more, or they're higher on those guys being the guys than I am right now. All right, y'all. The link to come on live is right there in the chat right now. If you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, all that good stuff. Shout out to everybody supporting the show, tuning in. Underdog Fantasy. Y'all see that right there. All right, promo code Crocky. Go to underdogfantasy.com or download the Underdog Fantasy app. Use the promo code Crocky. Whatever you deposit, they'll match that up to $100. Go make you some money. Got college basketball games right now. Over-unders, props, all that good stuff. Underdog Fantasy, go do that right now. Underdog Fantasy, a lot of fun during football season. I'm not going to lie. Basketball, I kind of suck at it. I think I've made money like twice off of basketball out of the 50 times I done played it. But football, we're getting to the chicken, baby. We're getting to the chicken. So y'all know come football season, we're going to be all in on that. Hey, any of y'all in New York? Because Underdog Fantasy is flying me to New York. They're flying me to New York June. Damn, when they flying me to New York? They're flying June 21st. It's like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. All right, so 21st, 22nd, 23rd, I believe it is. So if y'all in New York, man, we gotta link up, man. We gotta chop it up, all that good stuff, man. I'll be out there with Underdog Fantasy. I know I'm going to a Yankee game, and I'm going in my Giants hat. Fuck they thought, you know what I'm saying? But I'll be out in New York for a few days with my Underdog folks. So if y'all out there, link up. Hell, I'll be in Vegas the beginning of next month. So, you know what I'm saying? Y'all in Vegas, I'm for sure finna link up. I'm free. Just me and my brother, we out there finna turn up. We were in Dallas the other week, and we didn't get to have the fun we wanted for his birthday. So we're going to Vegas for my birthday, which is my birthday's in 10 days. I always forget when my birthday is. But for my birthday and his birthday, like it's like, all right, let's just beginning of June, let's go. So I'll be in Vegas. So if any of y'all in Vegas, man, hit your boy up. Let's go. All right, here we go. I got Papa Dragon on live. Papa Dragon, good morning. Man. How you doing?
Good morning. Good morning. What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good. We've talked about a lot of different things so far this morning. All right, we definitely talked about Trey Lance, and just kind of the narratives that are pushed, and it's like, man, it's kind of wild. Like they're not even giving this kid a legit chance. It's really weird. All right, so there's that part. We talked about. I mentioned Danny Gray, and hey, my evaluation of him as a player right now, depending on what you want from him, I'm not as high. But also, I talked about where I was with Terry McLaurin and how really their games, whether it's their speed that they have on paper, running in the 4.3s, low 4.3s. What I've seen on film, very similar. And Terry McLaurin, he's one of the better route runners in the NFL. So clearly, even Danny Gray, there's something he can learn. And I'm not saying that he's not going to be good. I'm just, evaluating where I'm at, where he needs to improve, and we'll see if he's able to do those things. And we also talked about Ty Davis-Price. So, the floor is yours to kind of discuss anything that you want.
Yeah, well, I was probably one of the first people to come out and really just champion that pick. Just because one of the things I've kind of learned over the years, as far as scouting and drafting and things like that film is one part of it. Interviews is another part. And when it comes to the 49ers, another big part is when they get a chance to see people up close and in person, such as the Senior Bowl and things like that. So you get a pretty good idea who they're kind of looking at, and then some of their other tendencies. Now, don't forget, we all have our own biases. So one bias that a lot of us have, and I had the same bias, was, you can get a running back in the 6th round or get him undrafted, because we've got lucky there a couple of times. But a lot of the picks, a lot of our higher picks, we haven't been so lucky at running back. But I truly do believe that, for a running football team, you don't want your receiver to be your best running back. And I think that was just, it was fun last year. It was amazing to see Debo do what he did. But, man, he was getting blown up.
Yeah.
That Green Bay game. So, as a running football team, you don't want your number one receiver to be your best running back. So I thought that was one of the most glaring problems that the 49ers had coming into the offseason. I like Mitchell, but is it just me? It just seems like he uses like 80% of his energy hitting a hole and getting through it. And after that, he starts to fizzle. Some players, like the great players, is like once they get like through that first 10 yards or 15 yards, they just hit another gear, like Marshawn Lynch or a Jerry Rice. And I felt like Elijah Mitchell just kind of blew his wad getting through the hole. And like the minute he gets 10, 15 yards down the field, he starts to slow down. That's just what I saw. I mean, I don't know. I could be crazy. But I instantly felt they needed a running back, because there was some rumors about them trying to trade for Barkley. There was a minute where people were clamoring for the 49ers to trade for Barkley and things like that. There was people talking about Christian McCaffrey for a minute. But in my opinion, while it's too early to say whether it's a good pick or a bad pick, I am in that same camp of biases where I felt that the 49ers could just pick a running back up anywhere. But the reality is that, over the last, the last 4 or 5 years, he's had a different leading rusher every single year. So there really hasn't been consistency in that area. Consistency in rushing totals, yes, but there hasn't been that quote unquote bell column. Maybe the last 2 years is Kyle trying to build that running back room up and trying to get there. Maybe that's what it is. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think that's all definitely good points. I still feel again, to me, it comes down to the value. I see a lot of people oh, well, the 49ers, they had a lot of injuries at the running back position. And I'm like, yes, I 100% agree. But I still don't think that makes me draft a running back higher, unless we're talking about a guy who I'm going to bank on being a 3-down back. And I think Davis-Price has some of that ability. I talked about some of the guys he reminds me of: Montgomery, Kevin Barlow, that type of big, light on his feet type guy.
Yeah.
And, because 6 foot, he's going to weigh 220. Kevin Barlow was a big back as well that had some good moves, light on his feet. I like the way Kevin Barlow ran. Another guy that I think kind of, fits that mold. I know my co-host said Greg Jones, running back in the day from Florida State.
Yeah.
So, we'll see how they utilize Ty Davis-Price. But, I think ultimately he's a guy who I like the way he runs. I know that for sure. But
I get the same thing from some.
It's just the value. To me, that doesn't change. To me, it's you either draft a running back high second round because you think he can be an every down back, or you probably wait a little bit because, again, we're talking about a third round where you're still looking for starters. And maybe the 49ers aren't looking for starters. I don't know. But to me, that's why I think that.
There's another factor, too, that people discount. The 49ers have an uncanny deep football team. And when they are drafting people, especially in those early rounds, they really have to consider whether or not this person could actually make the roster because there might be somebody else already there. So that's another particular situation. I know a lot of us are clamoring for safety, but they have 4 safeties. And I think that they need to try to get through those guys and see if they got something there. You can only do that by playing them, kind of like Trey Lance. But it's one of those situations where it's they have to consider, well, if we draft this guy, will he make it? So it's let's say if the top player available was a left tackle, right? Does he beat out the guys that they have to make the team in the 3rd round? And we're also talking lower 3rd round, which is kind of close to the 4th round and things like that. I do believe that TDP is going to make this team. I also believe he's going to wind up starting. Now, the scouting buddies I have, several of them are not high on him. One guy said he was the 5th back on his board, but he said this. He said he may be the 5th back on the board. He goes, but nobody runs harder in this draft than him. He told me that he runs the hardest out of all these guys in the draft, although he was 5th on the board. And a lot of people are dinging him because of the overall amount of carries, and also they don't know if he's a natural catcher of the football or quote unquote a 3-down back. So I think we'll see what happens. Hopefully it lights a fire up under Trey Sermon. Maybe Trey Sermon emerges. Or maybe Elijah Mitchell all of a sudden has a whole another level he reaches because, again, the room is becoming more competitive. And then hopefully Debo is not in the backfield on 3rd and 7 in Lambeau. Those are all things that I'm hoping doesn't happen. So that's my 2 cents on that. But when I looked at the draft and I thought about what they're going to take, I look at the 49ers tendencies, and then I look at who visited. And that's why I picked, Drake to be the first pick because he visited. He's a defensive lineman, and he's got a chance to make the team. So those are the 3 things that I look at. I think the defensive backs. I think the one guy, the 5'9" guy with the long arms. I forget his name right now. I'm having
Womack.
Yeah, I think he could be a diamond in the rough. I think he could have that George Kittle-like impact as a nickel back, or as a slot corner. And then of course they did a good job picking up offensive linemen. But again, this draft, a lot of people are making a lot of things about this draft, and I thought this was one of the worst drafts I've ever seen as far as just having bankable superstar. You see a lot of people with potential and a lot of upside, but literally after pick 8 or 9, or like the top 9 players, it's like everybody was really, really close and lumped together, and there was usually explanations to why they slipped, the things that made sense. But I'm not disagreeing with you 100%, because I'm not gonna lie to you. When the running back pick came up and it happened, I was taken aback a little bit. I wasn't shocked, but I was like, that's interesting. I get it, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
Because again,
I got people, I'm looking at my Twitter right now, and it's like, Crock, Crock hates the pick. And it's like, no, I don't hate the player, just the value. And there are some people in the chat talking about some of the running backs that went after. And if you really like this running back to that extent, then I get it. But I just think running back and the production of it, we'll see. Could and I see some of the names being thrown out there right now. Brian Robinson, the running back out of Alabama, like the way he ran. He's another guy that ran. He went later. Jerome Ford, like him, again, talked about the running back out of at a UNC, like the way he ran. Like, these are all guys that were going later, and I think that matched more the value of running backs, because unless you just think that Davis-Price is going to be that much better than those guys, and I just don't see that. I don't see that. So maybe he fits a little bit more, but I don't know.
I don't know. I think one thing I discovered last year is that for Debo really accomplished a lot just because of his mentality of how he attacked. And I think Mitchell accomplished a lot too, because he had a similar mentality the way he attacked it, but he just didn't have that short area burst that Debo has. And when I saw Debo hit the hole and hit the line, it's like, I really haven't seen running back play like that in a long time in NFL. I really haven't. I mean, I'm trying to think of the backs that just really attack it. Maybe Taylor from the Colts, he really hits it and attacks it. And that's kind of what I saw with TDP, because first thing I said was, man, this dude reminds me of Debo. He runs mean. So I think that is something that I think that probably impressed him. And plus, remember, he was also a pre-draft visit. So those are like those two things that kind of go hand in hand. And it may be, usually if somebody knows something in a draft, I don't know how these guys get these feelings or they know. But if TDP went there, that means that someone was about to take him. I'm just saying. That's usually how the draft works. Somebody has an idea or inkling that another team is about to take the person that they actually really, really like. And that's the only I could probably guess. As far as Scangarello, and I'm going to probably close shop up here real quick, but this Scangarello crap is the same crap that goes on for years and for years and for years when it comes to personal bias towards players and things like that. And, obviously Lance is going to always face bias for various reasons, but people fail to realize that a lot of the stuff that he gets criticized for and gets dinged on and things like that, you still got to play the game. And what I saw last year is that Trey Lance is an NFL quarterback that's going to make defenses have to prepare. It's easy to keep a guy in the pocket if he's a pocket passer, but if you got a guy that can run to one side of the field and throw clear to the other side of the field, that's something to prepare for. That's NFL caliber crap, and he has those traits, and that's why you look at him and you picked him. I was the same way when I looked at the film. He wasn't even on my board until I looked at all the film of the quarterbacks. When I saw the quarterbacks, I'm like, this dude has potential to be the best one. Whereas, a player like Mac Jones has probably the best processing, the best head for the game and things like that. And mechanics is just that he's just got such a low ceiling that, honestly, I think that he's like.
I don't want to talk about ceilings though, because I like to think I don't know what a player is going to be, because I think that guys can always exceed. I get what you're saying though, in the sense of maybe some of the things that he can do, more like off script and make it look a certain way, right? Like you're not gonna watch Mac Jones and be like kind of blown away by some of the things you see, as opposed to watching like a Josh Allen or somebody, right? Or like a Patrick Mahomes, right, where it's like, wow, did you see this? But The ceiling thing is, even if it doesn't quarterback the same way as those guys, I still think there's scenarios where he quarterbacks very, very well. So I don't want to. I get what you're saying though, but I don't
Yeah,
know. The ceiling argument is
I will. You know what? That's a great point. I'm not going to make that argument. What I will say is, I think that Trey Lance has a lot of elite traits. He has a lot of elite intangibles, and I think ultimately he'll be fine. I think that things are a little bit more political than what we like to say. So when people are calling out the 49ers for not anointing him and things like that, he hasn't earned it yet. You see what I'm saying? I mean, it's not like people come into this league ready to play. I mean, Patrick Mahomes was a loser in college. He never had a winning season. No one looked at Patrick Mahomes and said, "Oh, he's going to be that guy that comes in his first year starting and throw for 50 touchdowns." No one said that. So it's all about, do the players have the capabilities to do it? You see what I'm saying? And I really do think that Trey Lance is in a great situation where ultimately what I saw this offseason, building up the special teams, improving the defense and things like that, it seems like to me they're doing everything they can to make sure that other areas of the team are much better. And then hopefully the development happened on the offensive line, and hopefully a player like TDP comes and helps improve the running back room. Hopefully he starts. Hopefully Debo has to play his role, and hopefully, Trey Lance keeps his head on straight and doesn't try to run through players. And as long as he can do certain things, I think that he'll be fine, personally.
All right. I hear you, Papa Dragon. I'm going to get you off. I got a few guys waiting now. I'm going to get on now.
All right. Yes, sir. Shout out to Crock Talk. Shout out to your family, man. Please like and subscribe. We're out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, here we go. I think what we're going to do now is I'm going to bring on three guys together. And I think these are three guys that I really like a lot of what they bring to the table, in the sense of kind of their thoughts in the process and things like that. So we got Gammon, we got Swan Song, and Medic Mike. Good morning, y'all. How y'all doing?
What's up?
What's happening? Absolutely,
I'm good, man. The floor is y'all. And whichever way y'all want to take this, I'm good with it.
I like to go first with I'm going to go first with Medic Mike, what he said, because I kind of made a super chat about how Robert Saleh, how he's very personable with the media and his approach, and Kyle Shanahan really doesn't do that. I would say like the Niners organization as a whole, and I thought like he kind of came up behind my comment immediately and said like difference in coaching styles, and I was like, because there's only so many 150 characters that you can kind of fit, and I was like exactly like that was like the next like kind of like bullet point that I wanted in there. But I just think that also too, it's really big that I think Saleh's in a better position. Like if Kyle Shanahan was in New York, I don't think Kyle Shanahan would be doing as well as Robert Saleh would be doing. I think he has a lot better of a ability of kind of controlling that narrative. But I just wanted to kind of start off with that. But the other thing I kind of want to jump off of on there with the reporters, as far as like Schefter and everything like that, like there's something that's got to be said for trying to get to the story first, so, and I think that also too goes with what this guy said when he kind of threw Trey Lance and his camp under the bus by saying underwhelming and all these things. And then people started then looking this dude up and then kind of backtracking him. I mean, he's Trey Lance, the throws that he's missing are not exactly the throws that I'm concerned about him eventually being able to make, right? Those bubble screens, those throws at the line of those aren't the ones I'm worried about him making. It was the throws that Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't make that had me worried. And then, I mean, Crock, I know you don't like to talk about or say you don't like to limit players on their ceilings, and I think that's something that you kind of have personal, but I think that's a reason why a lot of Niner fans were glad and had a sigh of relief that we had Trey Lance and not someone like Mac Jones. I mean, your physical limitations, the way that these offensive linemen are the offensive lines are not as good as defensive lines, and so your athletic limitations do start to kind of creep into your overall ceiling as a quarterback. I feel now that not to say
I think what you're trying to say is overall it's having the ability to make that play, right? Like whatever that play is that you need to make. I remember watching Deshaun Watson, and again, you want guys that can play from the pocket and do those things, and that's great. But sometimes you're going to be put in a situation where it's just a little bit less than ideal. And I remember a couple years ago watching Deshaun Watson. This was Houston Texans against the Buffalo Bills in the wild card round playoffs. And there was this play late in the game where Deshaun Watson drops back and there's like a runner at him, and he's getting sacked, and the game is probably going to be over. And he just kind of like spins out of it, throws a guy kind of off of him, hops up, and then just throws a dart downfield. And ultimately, like, that was the difference in the game. Like him being able to do something that other players can't. You know, where if it's someone else, they might just say, oh, well, the O-line didn't block on this play, right? Let's use the play. And again, I'm just using that as an example. But the last play that Jimmy Garoppolo threw as a 49er, that interception against the Rams, where, you know, that was an opportunity for him to kind of get out, escape, and then make a play on the move. And he just couldn't do it, right? Now we could say, damn, offensive line didn't hold up. But sometimes you just need a guy to be able to make that play that other people can't and rise above the current circumstances. And I think when people talk about ceiling, I think that's more of what they're talking about, where it's kind of just that play. Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, right? Jimmy Garoppolo had plenty of opportunities to make a play, right? All he had to do in that fourth quarter was just keep one drive going, and he couldn't do it, right? He just couldn't make that one play, whether his balls getting batted down, a guy running, whatever the circumstances were, but just overcoming what's going on to be able to make that one play so the 49ers can win the Super Bowl. Couldn't do it, as opposed to Patrick Mahomes, where he drops back 50 yards and throws off his back leg with Bosa and Armstead and everybody bearing down on him, and he throws his pass downfield where it's like, man, he overcame whatever the circumstances were to be able to make a play for his team to win. And I think when people talk about Jimmy Garoppolo and he can't win a Super Bowl, I think he can. It's just the situation just needs to be more ideal as opposed to someone else, like even maybe Trey Lance, where eventually he'll be able to be a guy. Will he win a Super Bowl or not? We don't know. But he will give you that opportunity of when stuff hits the fan and it breaks down a little bit, he's going to be able to do something a little different than maybe someone with a more limited ceiling. Am I right there?
Yeah, and then I kind of want to pass this one. You are 100%. I want to pass this one off to Medic Mike, but my feeling is, and you know, I said there was a couple of things I said, before I went to the field for about 20 days here was number one, hey, 49ers fans, relax. Number two, I stuck with, no matter what was kind of going on in the media, I always said that I felt like it was a 30% chance that Deebo Samuel would be traded. There just wasn't enough information really there in the media. And I said that I think I came out first saying that I thought A.J. Brown from the Tennessee Titans would be more likely traded than Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel isn't really like a transcendent kind of, like, he can go to any system and operate. He's a niche player. And I just felt like the 49ers, I think it's easier to replace Ayuk with his skill set than it is someone like Deebo Samuel. But the other thing too, Medic Mike, what I wanted to pass off to you, brother, is I think the thing is with Trey Lance is reps, right? Like, we had a 5th round pick in Kittle. Would Kittle be the superstar that he was if he didn't have the reps that he did, right? Or the young corners that we have, if they didn't have I think it's just a lot of it comes down to reps. What do you think?
Yeah, and I agree with that take. And first off, congrats and shout out to Stevie Crocker and all my healthcare workers out there. But yeah, no, I agree. It's the reps is what he needs. It's, you have Lance, who threw, I believe it was less than 400 passes in college. Steve Young came out and said, yeah, you can learn some on the bench, but you need those reps to get better. Trey Lance said the 2 starts, and when he got those first team reps, that's when he improved the most. So you're hearing it from every side. You're hearing it from vets who played in the league. You're hearing it from Trey himself, and you're watching it. when you watch Trey, when you break down his film, he gets better and better and better as games progress. He learns within the game. He'll make a mistake, he'll come back, and he won't make the same mistake again. Like, I mean, from a mental standpoint, I mean. So, yes, the reps are what he needs. And some of the media narrative, like that whole Lombardo thing, I didn't even pay attention to that. I mean, people are like, oh, it's just the Texans. Well, the Texans just took out the Chargers the week before and dismantled Herbert. So what you got to say about that? I mean, the Texans actually had a decent defense. You know what I'm saying? When we played Arizona, we had 5 holding calls alone. 4 of those had gone for first downs prior to those holding calls. And he still picked up like 4 or 5 third and long. So, I mean, when you look at the progression of the kid, that's what it's all about. And he needs those reps. Those reps that's what's going to help him get better. The reason why people are like, oh, Mac Jones, the most pro-ready, most, and is going to come in and be a plug-and-play starter is because he was playing at Alabama. He saw the most pro-ready defenders. He saw what was most comparable to NFL speed. And so he was able to acclimate his decision-making most closely to an NFL quarterback. Now, when it comes to Trey's mind, no one's questioning that. He seems to be a super smart kid. He digested the whole playbook just between OTAs and training camp. Put him with the live bullets. He needs to see the speed. He needs to see the reps, and he gets better and better. Personally, I think this kid's going to be phenomenal. I've never seen someone learn so fast, like on the fly. As he plays, as you watch him play, and he gets comfortable, he just gets better and better and better. And I'm waiting to see where that's going to taper off, and that's only going to, come when you see him getting his reps and seeing him getting in the game.
Yeah, and what's funny is that when I first saw those reports, I'm like, underwhelming, huh? Like, what coach is going to actually say that? Like, if you're coaching a guy, you always think about what you can do with what you have. You don't think, oh, yeah, he sucks, unless you have an axe to grind or you're a reporter making up some crap, right? And when it comes to it's like, what could be underwhelming? Like, if the report came out and said, you know what? He doesn't work that hard as they say, and he's not as smart as people say. Those things would concern me, right? But if you're telling me this guy doesn't have an arm and things like that, are you guys thinking that we're stupid? Like you can see it right there. Like, you're crazy. If they really wanted to troll 49 fans, they'd be like, you know what? He's not that smart, dude. And all this other stuff, they're exaggerating, they're capping. That would make me worry. Right? Because there's no other way for me to disprove that, right? And that's what I like about Trey. And if everything is right about this kid, about being smart, doing all those things, which I think it is, because out of the 30 years of being a sports fan, I can sniff out a lot of bullshit. I try to poke holes as a fan in everything that I get when I see something, whether it's good or bad, right? In this case of Trey Lance, I'm trying to look for all these things. Okay, let's see. Are we getting lied to? This, that, and the other. And so far, man, everything checks out. Like, yeah, did it look rough at the beginning? Yeah, it looked rough. I mean, that was obvious, right? But if you look, I was watching some games last night, like the old games, like Steve Young's, not first start, but where he gets pushed into duty, right, in the 1989 season. Dude, he looked rough too. And we're talking about a guy that was in the offense for 4 years. You know what I mean? So go back and watch those games, and you'll see the same type of stuff. I mean, yeah, he's a little bit more polished than the first half of Trey Lance in the Texans and Arizona game. But the way that Trey Lance, to me in sports, is when, and you touched on this earlier, it's what does the guy do when it's all on the line? Like, what does that look like, right? Because every sport is like that. You don't care about what he does in the first quarter of a basketball game. Is if he hits that clutch shot. Does he have the ability to go clutch and win a game? And those are the people that you really, at the pinnacle of sports, right? That's who you look at, right? And I mean, of course, we've only seen 2.5 games, but he's shown that he can rise to the occasion. That's the thing that you want to see, because if you don't see those things, that's where it's scary. And that's why the first half of all those games were scary, because we saw it and we're like, whoa, man, he looks like a deer in headlights, kind of but the fact that he settled down and got through that, whatever it was, that tells you something about someone's character. And that's what I'm excited for. And that's why all these other stories, and another thing about for the 49er fan base, we're the easiest fan base to troll, dude. Like seriously, we can. I mean, I get it, and I get it. It's because what this regime, this ownership, has kind of like the way that they do things. Like we're all always left in the dark. Like as 49er fans, we don't know one way or the other. I mean, can you blame fans for being nervous when Jimmy Garoppolo, as of freaking May 10th, is still on this team? So it's as long as this goes, everyone's gonna think, oh man, yeah, there must be something wrong with Trey. Why is Jimmy still on this team? Right? So those things like that. We just got to endure it for a little bit longer, and that's it.
Well, I think also too, it doesn't help. Croc. I think it doesn't help that the Lynch and Shanahan don't really go out of their way like most organizations do to either like diffuse bad press or media or push out their own narrative. If it's something that's not good, they'll just let that rumor kind of sit there.
We saw that with the draft, right? Where they were like, Kyle talked about it. He's like, listen, everybody was telling us how we were going to draft this certain guy, and we're looking like, all right, if that's what you think. And it's like, it wasn't up to them, or it wasn't their job to shoot down the narratives. Like they know what they're thinking and what's inside their building and how they're going about the process and what they're going to do. And if everybody thinks that they're doing something different or they're thinking a different way, so be it. That's your fault. And maybe we could be seeing some of that right now. But I will say, and maybe I give them too much credit, but I feel like they've been very, very, very open and honest about this situation since the offseason. Their situation surrounding the quarterback position, they've told us where they were every step of the way. They've told us where their thoughts were and why it has played out the way it has. So they've been very open and honest with that aspect of things, and why Jimmy Garoppolo is still on the team. We had Mike Renner on Locked On 49ers last night, and he talked about like, just a little weird. Why is Jimmy still on the roster? And my head is like, Kyle has told us why. They tried to trade him, they couldn't because he hurt his shoulder, so he's still here, and they think it's better to just not cut him, at least right now. And that's it. Like there's nothing more to it. There's no underlying message there. There's not any sneakiness. Kyle's not really a bullshitter. So it's really just straight up. We like Trey Lance. That's why we tried to trade Jimmy. Jimmy's shoulder threw everything off, and that's why he's still on the roster. What do you want me to do? Like that's how I heard it.
Right, and that's the thing that's interesting is they say their opening dialogue. They say it once. They're not going to over repeat themselves or anything like that. It's either you get the message the first time or not. They're going to move on from that. And then the other thing too. Oh, I just lost it. Gosh, what I was going to say. I can't remember. But what I did want to say though is was that as far as them drafting running back in the third round, I mean I'm okay with that, right? Because Swan Song, what would you say the offensive identity is of this team?
I mean, they were trying to figure it out last year, but it's a, run. They want to run in first and second down and make it third and shorts, like make third and short a thing.
That's the cliche answer, right? Like that's what every NFL team is like, well, we want to run the ball, set up short yard situation, except for maybe Kansas City. Like they might tell you something different. But I'll say this, and this is who the 49ers are. The 49ers want to be physical, and they want to be more physical than their opponents. So whether they're on offense or they're on defense, and teams, there are a lot of teams like, oh, we want to be more physical. But the 49ers really that's really what they pride themselves on. Like moving bodies, people that love getting dirty, people that love that physicality. That's why you have the George Kittles. That's why you have the Trent Williams. That's why you have the Deebo Samuels. That's why you don't have the Dante Pettises. That's why you don't have maybe the Ahkello Witherspoons. Guys that maybe they identify as not fitting that culture. Now, Ahkello Witherspoon fitting just fine with the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? But so it doesn't mean that a guy just can't play, but really how the 49ers identify their identity is physicality. That's Ty David Price. Like that's physicality. Where Trey Sermon, when things weren't going very well, what did he do? He removed stuff off social media and stuff like that during the year. We're not talking about contract negotiations. We're not talking about that. We're just things ain't going your way. Oh, let me take this stand because I'm upset, right? And what happened? Like, he didn't play much more for the rest of the season. So I think 49ers, what they identify more than anything is just being physical and being the tough guys, being the bullies. I remember them going into the Dallas game, and there were a lot of Dallas Cowboy fans that were really pushing back. Oh, the 49ers, like, oh, they think they're so tough. They think they just bully anybody, blah, blah. Like, everybody's tough in the NFL. And I'm like, yeah, people are tough, but 49ers really are a tough team. And we saw that where the 49ers came out, punched him in the mouth. You saw Cowboy players getting upset about certain things and maybe getting out of their character because you got to fake match the physicality of the 49ers, where the 49ers really build their identity on that.
Yeah, you're totally right. You see me on that one. Yeah, I was gonna say you're totally right when you say that 100%. You're correct. I remember one of the things when they got Mike McDaniel went to Miami, right, and they asked him, okay, what are you gonna bring? You're gonna bring the run game. You're gonna bring, there's like that canned reporter question, right? And then Mike came out and said, I want to bring physicality. I want every player to play hard. And when you do that, when all players play hard like that, it's tough to handle. It's like what you're saying, like. You have to either teams are going to be that physical or they're going to try to fake it, right? They're going to try to play with high energy and things like that, like in the Dallas game. But go ahead, Mad Mike.
Physicality, definitely 100%. I'd also say an identity of ours to keep you off balance. Kyle loves his matchups. He loves switching formations. We motion more than any team in the league. If he can get juice on a linebacker, if he can get a wide receiver that can also come in as running back, and if he can get you out of formation and keep you off balance, that is a staple. Play action. In the Dallas game, handing it off to Debo and watching the entire offense crash down, and then he throws a 20-yard touchdown to Jawan Jennings. Keeping people off balance, and along with the physicality has always been a staple of our offense, which is why I think Kyle looks for a lot of guys with very specific skill sets, and this can tie right into the Danny Gray, because when you have someone, he needs that person. He had Travis Benjamin on, not because he's necessarily a great receiver, because he can threaten you with that speed. And when you have someone that can threaten somebody, well, guess what? A defense has to play a certain way. When a defense has to play in a certain way, you're playing into Shanahan's hand. He wants to play chess with you. He wants to force a reaction. An action is always faster than a reaction. And so he wants to force a reaction from you. He wants to make, okay, look, if I put Gray right here, if I use this, if I motion this way, you have to respond this way. If you don't, I'm going to eat you up. If you respond this way, I know what your rules are, and I'm going to eat you up. And so I think keeping people off balance and being physical are definitely the two staples of our offense.
Yeah, and one of the things, like, everyone says, like, of course, the 49ers are a winning team. But if you look at how their plays are split, they're pretty much 50-50 run-pass balance. And then if you look at the 80s teams of the Niners, they're 50-50. Because when you are 50-50, it's harder for them to guess what the hell you're doing, right? Like if you're playing paper, rock, scissors, right? And one guy does something randomly all the time, that's the hardest person to play, right? You play the person that just throws up 3 signs, like they don't even know, they're so random. And I think that's how one of the things they keep teams off balance, right? You have to respect everything.
Yeah. And definitely want to take a quick pause. Everyone take 3 seconds. Hit that like button. That's all. We're all here. I mean, why not? We're all here hanging out. May as well. It's not going to hurt you. You know what I mean? You're going to be fine. We keep this content going. But Medic Mike, I think you brought up a really good point about his individual pick in players, right? Like you don't use a hammer to paint a wall, right? You use a paintbrush. You have a tool for every specific job. And that's why I really like the running back selection that he got. He picked somebody who was a little bit bigger, a little bit thicker. Because I'll be honest, when we went up against Green Bay, I really liked Green Bay's running back. When Green Bay's running back, that big, powerful guy, I can't remember his name, but he's got about that. Yeah, and he's about like 230, right? As well. Like he's not somebody who's going to taper off a 60-yard run, but just an absolute manimal, somebody to have to bring down. And when I was kind of looking at it, and Swan Song, you kind of brought up a good point too, right, about the split as far as the offense goes. But if you look even just within the splits within the running scheme, you're starting to see also too a trend with Kyle Shanahan where he's going a little bit more blended from a zone into more of a what do you call that? A
gap in man scheme.
Yes, yeah, and you're starting to see that more. And so with this selection of this running back, right? Because people are going like, oh, since we picked him, that means that Trey Sermon is being phased out. No, Trey Sermon is still going to be really great for that zone scheme. This guy is going to be really good for this power gap scheme implementation too. But and I think that's the problem, is that some people either create narratives in their head or they read too far into things, when it's really this guy, this third round running back is a perfect third round running back for this part of this running game, whereas this third round running back is really the perfect back for this other part.
Yeah, that's what's great about the NFL too, is that it balances itself, right? Like you have all these teams that are, of course, hey, we're going to get a bunch of lighter guys. We're going to have to start defending the pass because this game is about passing, right? The rules favor it, right, compared to other eras, right? And then you have teams that go, okay, well, if all the defenders if they're getting small defenders and stuff, let's make them pay, right? Like, so then you have the teams like the shanty systems, so like, oh, hey, we're going to run the ball too. So I love how the NFL always polices itself. It's always balancing itself.
All right, man. Hey, I appreciate all y'all coming on. I got one more caller before we get out of here, man. But Gammon, Swan Song, Medic Mike, I appreciate y'all boys.
Thanks, Crock.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, Crock.
Thank
All
you.
right, y'all. All right, got one more caller coming on. Shout out to everybody that's in the chat. Man, like my guy Texas Niner said, man, hit that like button. All right, click the little chat down, hit the like button, all that good stuff. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe as well. Of course, we appreciate that. I saw somebody in the chat said, man, I can't wait for football season. I'm with you. I think it's gonna fly by though. I think the month of May is gonna fly by. The next thing you know, it's gonna be late June. I'm gonna be in New York for a few days. The next thing you know, it's gonna be July. That's gonna fly by. Hopefully, my damn gym is finished being built by then. And then it's gonna be 49ers time. It's gonna be exciting times. Here we go. I got Gary coming on. Gary, good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Got you.
Yeah, I'm actually driving into work. Sorry about that. I really don't have that much time. But honestly, the one take that I want to say is that I'm not too high on Trey just yet. I'm not really. I really was never really too high on Jimmy, straight off the bat. At the beginning when he first joined our team, because honestly, I was really high on Kaepernick when we made the switch, and that was all because of Alex Smith. I believe Alex Smith, he just passed too many safe passes. He threw the ball to safe locations, never had that in order to win the game. It frustrated the hell out of me. As soon as Kaepernick came in with that arm, I was all about him straight off the bat. And just want to remind everybody, and the reason why I'm not so high on Trey just yet is like let's see some more. I want to see some more, and I'm excited about what the future holds with them. And there's a reason why Shanahan wanted him. There's a reason why we went out and we drafted him. So like I'm excited for that portion of it. But I want to see the mid-range passes. So the reason why I want to see those passes is because I don't know if everybody remembers the Chip Kelly years. Right now, through Jimmy Garoppolo in the past couple of years, he's really good at connecting the chains. It looks like dog shit most of the times. I'm sorry for cussing, but and I have yelled at my screen when he's done those boneheaded passes, but he connects the dots, and our offense is out there for a good amount of time. During the Chip Kelly years, our defense was out there for a really extended amount of time, and they were gassed all the time. And in my opinion, and I'm no football expert by any means, it's the reason why Chip Kelly didn't last. He killed our defense. And my point of this is that if Trey can't keep the pace and the tempo of the game like Jimmy did, it's going to hurt our defense. Our defense is a stellar defense by all means. It's amazing. We have backups and all that jazz. But if they're out there too long, We're going to get people hurt. And they're just going to be outplaying themselves. They're going to be out there way too long. And there's something to say about being able to keep the tempo of the game. Um, I don't really hear anything about that. I want to see more mid range. I'm not saying that he can't do it. I just want to see more of it.
Yeah, and I hear you. And again, I think, and I kind of said this earlier in the episode. If y'all tune in early, go back, listen to the start of the show where I was kind of going in depth on certain things. But I think with Trey Lance has got to be, or at least the way I view it is, has he done it? Has he shown the ability to make some of those mid-range throws? And then I think from there is, well, if he has, then how do you get him to be more consistent? And I think that's where he's at right now, where he has shown the ability to do all those things, as most NFL quarterbacks have. But I think he's shown the ability to do things at a high level. Now it's just, can you be consistent with it? We've seen some of the tight throws. We've seen his aggressiveness. We've seen some of those intermediate throws. But you have to be more consistent with doing that. And I think that's where he's at right now with his game. And probably what the next step in his development will be.
Yep, exactly. And then with the running back pick, honestly, I wasn't scouting him. I'm not I don't know his talent level, but what I've asked in the room is he a weapon that we could use as in substituting Kittle's role in the offensive line, and actually using Kittle as an offensive weapon again. There is that option. If we could replace that, and actually have him out there catching balls again, that would be amazing. But anyways, I digress. And thanks, great show, Croc. I watch you all the time. You're doing amazing in your platform, and I appreciate your show, brother. I gotta go.
Oh man, thanks for coming on. I appreciate that. All right, shout out to my guy Gary. I see my guy David Hasselhoff, and he's like, Croc, drop the link. Croc. I'm not dropping the link yet because it's 10, so we're about to get out of here right now. But man, we're gonna be back tomorrow, and maybe we'll open up the discussion early on where we can have these open kind of debates and things like that. I did want to say, if you haven't already, tune in to the Not Ideal podcast. Had the last episode with my wife. It was awesome. I think it's approaching 3,000 views, which is crazy. Also, listen to it on Spotify, Apple, all that good stuff. Hit the little stars. Do leave the reviews, all that good stuff. Tonight, I got my homeboy, one of my former teammates coming on, Dwight McLean, man, and he does an amazing job with what he's doing. All right, he's a sports performance trainer. He has his own business. He's doing amazing. But I think even more so than the training aspect of things, it's his the business of selling this merchandise that he's doing, and it blew up. And he has over 100,000 followers on Instagram, all that good stuff. So we're going to talk about the whole process of that and how we used to be roommates when we were teammates, and how I saw a lot of the discipline in him then. I definitely didn't have it. He was much better at it than me. We're going to talk about all that stuff tonight at, I believe, 6 p.m. Pacific. So make sure y'all tune in to that. Shout out to everybody in the chat right now. Hit the like button, subscribe button, as my guy Texas Niner said earlier. Good conversations. If you came in kind of midway through this whole thing, make sure you go back and listen to the show. All right, I did start this comment here because someone said Pettis didn't like contact, and here's my thing sometimes with the prospects, because someone else on YouTube mentioned this. He was like, "Oh, the difference between Danny Gray and AJ Jenkins and Dante Pettis is physical. He's much more, or he's tough." And my question, when did we find out Pettis wasn't tough? When did we find out AJ Jenkins wasn't tough? And again, this is not me saying that Gray won't be tough, but we didn't find those things out until they were in the league. Dante Pettis had to have some element of being tough. He's nobody has returned more punts for touchdowns in college football history, right? You got to be a big dog to stand back there, catch those punts, guys run full speed at you. You have to have some stones. I don't know what happened from that to translating to the NFL, but there's some weird stuff going on. I don't know, but I do know this: a lot of times you don't really truly find out who these players are until you get them, and you can try to poke and pry and figure it out along the way, but you never truly know until you get them in your building. And that's what happened with some of those guys. And you'll find out one way or another with Danny Gray. I think he's a tough guy. We'll see, but you're gonna find out. All right. hit the like button. Y'all, like my guy D Hicks said, I appreciate everybody that's coming here, contributed to such a great show. We had over 300 people for a lot of the show. Shout out to all of y'all. Like button, subscribe button, all that good stuff. But till next time, I'll see y'all tomorrow morning. Same time, same place. 9:30 Eastern time, 6:30 a.m. Pacific time. And again, tonight, the Not Ideal podcast, we're going to be live right here on this channel. Tune in. I'm out. Let's go. Peace. Nigga.
Intercepted. It is picked off by Aaron Crocker. Over midfield, he'll run it all the way into the end zone. Touchdown.
Crock Talk TV podcast. Peace.